Alright, so let's talk about grain spawn. It's a form of nutrition and a way to inoculate mycelium and expand it to add to your substrate. It's very common practice in all different types of mushroom cultivation. Um, Grain that you use is really pretty much dependent on your preference. What I like to use is wild bird seed because you can get it for really cheap and it's not that hard to process. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill up this quart jar a couple of times. And we're going to soak it overnight. Well, first we're going to rinse it. And then we're going to soak it. So I would say about one of these quart jars will give you almost 2 Coke jars. So we're going to do 3 because I'd like to have about 6 just to start out with. See what we're working with. So we're going to rinse it out. What's going to happen is we're going to fill this thing all the way up. See those sunflower seeds floating up there and all that millet? We're going to take that off. Because we don't want it. Be probably a little bit faster to use the strainer. But, I didn't really think of it. I didn't necessarily know I was going to be doing this video. So what you're going to do now is you're just going to pour all that on. All that floating shit, you don't want it. Now I'm using hot water. You can use cold water. I don't think it really matters. But you want all this stuff to float to the top. Pour it on. Now the reason I started out by doing it by hand is because it makes a mess in your sink. Nobody likes messes in their sink. See how murky that water is? It's another point of rinsing it. Some people will just leave all that floating stuff. The millet that's floating is typically because it's like got some sort of defect, like it's cracked or something, or it's hollow, so it just floats. But we're going to try and get this water clear, and then we're going to change the pH, and we're going to add some nutrition, and we're going to let it soak for overnight to quite a few hours or whatever. We still want it to absorb some moisture and a little bit of nutrition instead of just going out right and boiling. Another thing, people say that this can help germinate some of the heat-resistant bacteria that could be present on this birdseed. I don't necessarily agree because I think that, steam sterilization at 15 psi and 242 degrees is plenty. I don't know. It pretty much, it kills everything. There's not really anything to worry about that can survive that heat. So we could take this, boil it, or if we have some other grain, You wouldn't have to do all this work. So that's why a lot of people will buy other grains. For this stuff, I got 20 pounds, $10, and I can't complain. Notice our water's getting a lot more clear. We have hardly any sunflower seeds. That's good. We still have a bunch of stuff floating to the top, and not quite as much. And so something I've also seen is if you tap them like this and they sink, they're just fine. Just if you leave all that floater stuff though, it can cause a lot of starch problems. So we're going to do our best to get that out. Now, what we're going to do is fill it back up with water. Pretty clear. I'm satisfied with that. We don't want to rinse out all of them in case necessary. Got a whole lot floating. Get that stick out of there. We'll rinse it a couple more times. Like I said, you can fill that up. Got those grains going. Okay, now we're going to test the pH. Mushrooms, they prefer a slightly acidic environment. So 7's fine, but typically you want to shoot for like 6 when it comes to mushrooms. So I got a digital pH meter here. .4 and still going down. Okay. So 8.1. We're gonna add a little bit of coffee. The way I like to do it, I prefer not to have the grounds in there themselves, but it doesn't hurt. So what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to fill up this coffee filter. Move it around. Okay, that is going to change our pH probably by a lot. You probably didn't even need to use that much. A lot of people would just use some spent coffee grounds. You know, after they've already drinking their coffee, they'll just take it out of the filter and rerun water through it, or they'll just throw it in there. But this should be fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it might throw off the pH by a little more than I want, but that's what gypsum and pH balancers are for. But this is good. We're at about 6. And now when we add the gypsum, it'll probably bring us to about 7. So we could be a little more acidic, but it's not a big deal. So we're gonna go grab our gypsum and leave you guys hanging right there. Now I use probably more gypsum than most people, but I found it doesn't really harm anything. Just helps keep the grains from sticking, and it also adds a little bit of like nutrition. Now that it looks like a nice good cup of coffee, I'm going to test it one more time. Rinse that puppy off. Make sure we get a nice clean reading. And our pH has changed from that coffee and the gypsum. So we're at about 5.7, which is still good. That's fine. We're going to run with it. And we're going to let that soak overnight and then be back tomorrow, and I'll show you guys what to do next.